Like a lot of black folks, I love a good cookout. As long as we know who all gonna be there, who made the potato salad, who on the grill, who DJing, I'm with it. But when it comes to the 4th of July, when they celebrated their independence while they enslaved and oppressed us, I don't know, child. That one gets a side eye. Enslaved black folks were given the 4th of July off, not as a celebration, but as a management strategy. Keep them fed, keep them dancing, keep them drunk, keep them from thinking too clearly about what the word freedom actually meant for people who had none of it. Today, I'm doing two things at the same time. I'm taking the 4th of July, a holiday that's always been full of contradiction for Black folks in America, and I'm turning it over, looking at what's underneath it, using it as a path to a question that matters a whole lot more than fireworks and sparkle emojis. What did Independence Day actually look like for us? And then I'm going to introduce you to three Black women from Haiti, from Ethiopia, and from Ghana who answered that question not with a speech, but with action. Three women who remembered who their people were when everybody around them was ready to forget. Three women who knew their assignment. And because they did, they left a blueprint for us, for the global diaspora of Black folks, and an understanding of independence and what's demanded by us to gain independence. Stay with me. By the end of this video, you're going to understand something about liberty that the 4th of July never taught us. And I hope you'll be able to recognize something about yourself in these women. But before we get into it, if you're new here, I am Barbara Ohunini Fa. Y'all know I'm dramatic. Griot, author, ancestral strategist, and founder of Beautiful, Powerful Love, a storytelling movement for the remembering, healing, and liberation of Black women at a crossroads. If that's your jam, if that's a conversation you into, like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the things so that you get more of this in your feed. Now, get some water or a beverage of choice. This one might not require the energetic quenching of water, but let's go. Let me tell you what Frederick Douglass understood about the holidays that slaveholders gave to enslaved people. He said that ain't rest, that's engineering. Slaveholders understood the psychological cost of relentless labor without reprieve. So they built in release points. 4th of July was one, Christmas was the main one. Just a couple of days in the year where the pressure could come down just enough to keep the whole system from exploding. And it wasn't just time off. They designed what happened during that time, deliberately encouraging binge drinking, taking bets on who would drink the most whiskey without passing out, forced dancing, stage joy. Black feminist historian Sadia Hartman said these weren't just control mechanisms. She called them terror disguised as pleasures. Our enslaved ancestors were given a caricature of freedom on those holidays that was so debased that actual bondage looked preferable by comparison. And our enslaved ancestral mothers, the women, were especially confined to the plantation usually. They were rarely issued passes. They were bound by domestic labor performed as their second shift. So our enslaved ancestors were serving lemonade at the master's Independence Day barbecue, watching fireworks, celebrating a freedom that was literally built on their bodies. And yet, our people used whatever time they were given to mend their own clothing, to tend to their own small gardens, to visit family across plantations, to attend secret gatherings, to move their bodies in ways a plantation couldn't control. Historian Stephanie Camp documents that this is a form of resistance, using the cracks in the geography of containment to reclaim some fragment of selfhood. And sometimes they used it for something bigger, like the Rockville Rebellion. Our enslaved ancestors didn't just endure the 4th of July, they used it. On July 4th, 1845, about 75 armed enslaved black folks fled their plantations in southern Maryland and began a dangerous trek north towards freedom. They were intercepted near Rockville, Maryland, and they fought back, a full fugitive slave rebellion on Independence Day weekend. Abolitionists called it immediately for what it was: enslaved people demanding the Declaration's promises by force on the very day that those promises were being celebrated without them. The Rockville rebels were defended in newspapers, pamphlets, public speeches as participants in the American tradition of revolutionary resistance to tyranny, back when journalism was independent and they actually spoke the truth. 7 years later, in 1852, 50 years after the Declaration of Independence, Frederick Douglass stood in front of that white audience and said something that nobody in power wanted to hear. What, to the American slave, is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. He said it's a sham, a thin veil over the face of American hypocrisy. Then a few years later, something shifted. In 1863, 6 months after the Emancipation Proclamation, the thing that made supposedly slavery illegal, Douglas was willing cautiously to call the 4th of July our festival of freedom, too. We were feeling hopeful. It was Reconstruction when a few things were looking up for us, the little bit of time between when slavery legally ended, but before the backlash of Jim Crow. And after the Civil War, something I find hilarious happened. In the former Confederacy, the 4th of July became almost exclusively a black holiday. White Southerners had lost a war that they fought to preserve slavery. Well, it was about a lot more than that, but that's the through line we talk about, that it was about slavery, the Civil War. And they wanted nothing to do with the Union celebration. They was mad. They was big mad. So a lot of white Southerners boycotted the 4th of July entirely, and Black Americans claimed it. It was our holiday for a quick minute. But Douglas was watching. By 1875, as Reconstruction unraveled, his Independence Day speech turned ominous. He asked his black audience, which is a really interesting point, if war amongst the whites brought peace and liberty to the blacks, what will peace among the whites bring to us? Child, the answer came the next year in blood with the Hamburg Massacre. So, Hamburg, South Carolina, it's the centennial of American independence. A whole 100 years, America's been free from the tyranny of Britain. A black militia company was drilling, aka parading, in Hamburg, which was an all black town across the river from Augusta, Georgia. When two white men, as always, two white men demanded that they clear the street. And even though they were allowed to pass after a little bit of argument, the confrontation still escalated over the next few days. By July 8th, hundreds of armed white men from local rifle clubs surrounded the black men's militia armory and brought a cannon from Augusta with them and fired on the armory. When the militia tried to flee, the black militia tried to flee, they captured probably about five of them. I think there were six total that died, but five men were captured and executed. I think one died in the actual battle. But after they captured them, they killed those five men by firing squad. So Wade Hampton, who was an ex-Confederate general, used the Hamburg massacre to campaign for governor on a platform of white supremacy. Child, he won. His party took control of South Carolina legislature and ended Reconstruction in that state. Over the next 2 decades, they passed Jim Crow laws, imposed legal segregation, and in 1895 adopted a new constitution that effectively disenfranchised black voters. The men who did it, the men who led that massacre, two of them, Benjamin Tillman and Matthew Butler, became U.S. senators. And on the Senate floor, Tillman declared, yeah, we took the government away from them in 1876. We did take it. South Carolina put up a statue honoring this man, Tillman, on the state capitol grounds, and it stood until 2015. Is anybody watching this that's from South Carolina? Can you let me know in the comments if they put it back up? The way things are going these days, I wouldn't be surprised. Whoo, child. Now, 250 years after the Declaration of Independence, and here we are. The CDC paused the data collection program that tracked Black maternal mortality, citing executive order compliance. They didn't just cut the funding, they cut the ability to measure harm. The Department of Health and Human Services lost more than 20,000 employees since January 2025. Programs terminated midstream, not reconstructed, just abandoned. The affirmative action executive order that had been in continuous effect for 60 years under every administration, Republican and Democrat, was revoked with the stroke of a pen. The Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, historically the guardian of voting rights, fair housing, and employment protections, has been hollowed out and repurposed. Cases against election deniers have been dismissed. Jan 6 rioters pardoned, and they were about to get a payout. The National Law Enforcement Accountability Database that was created after George Floyd's murder in order to prevent officers with misconduct histories from being rehired, the whole database deleted. Black history is being removed from classrooms. Books are being banned. HBCU funding has increased while the financial aid pipeline that most Black HBCU students depend on was targeted for cuts. One community funded to silence criticism, while the other support structure was defunded. People who took to the streets to protest ICE killings and deportations were called domestic terrorists. Over 300 were arrested, and more than a third of those cases collapsed because there were charges that never should have been brought. And Black people are still being found hanging from trees. In each case, the Popo ruled the deaths as suicides. And in each case, the families and communities said, nah, we don't believe you. Ooh, child. Let's take a breath. And sip some water. So the reality is, we don't have to pretend this holiday means what they say it means. But what we can do, what we're going to do in this video, is take back the concept of independence and liberty. Yes, we need joy. Yes, we need rest. Yes, we need each other. Our ancestors made something human out of the 4th of July conditions that were inhumane. So we keep the cookout, but we close the cookout not just to skin folk, but to only kinfolk. I made a video for Juneteenth breaking that down, the internalized anti Blackness. The link's in the description. And we remember what the cookout was always really about for us: gathering, community, substance, each other. And we ask ourselves the question that our ancestors never got to answer fully and freely: what does liberty actually look like, and how do we get there? I want to talk about the path to liberty. And I want to introduce you to three ancestral mothers who have wisdom to give us about the path to liberty. You may not know their names, and the fact that you may not know their names is itself part of the story. But first, I want to tell you why. Why I'm about to talk about three Black women who never set foot on this continent or in this country that we know of. Before I tell you why these women in particular: Kevin Roberts. He is the current president of the Heritage Foundation. He replaced K. Coles James, who we talked about in that last Kinfolk video. And the Heritage Foundation is the organization that produced Project 2025, in case you didn't know or have forgotten. But before he became one of the most powerful architects of the right wing policy project in modern American life, he was a historian, a serious one. His 1999 master's thesis at Virginia Tech is titled African Virginian Extended Kin: The Prevalence of West African Family Forms Among Slaves in Virginia, 1740 to 1870. That was for his master's thesis. Then he went on to get his PhD, and his doctoral dissertation 4 years later at the University of Texas at Austin was titled Slaves and Slavery in Louisiana: The Evolution of Atlantic World Identities, 1791 to 1831. Both of these deep dived into the same time period that we just talked about, when all of the revolts and attempts of liberation were going down, when enslaved Black folks were demanding liberty defined in the Declaration of Independence. Two major academic works, both about enslaved Black people, both about African cultural retention under the conditions of U.S. chattel slavery. In his thesis, Roberts documented that the cultural characteristics transferred from West Africa to Virginia under enslavement included, and I want you to hear this, the centrality of women, The matriarchal extended family networks. This is pulled from his dissertation. He found that interplantation kinship webs, interplantation meaning between plantations, were built and maintained by Black women, and it stretched across county and state lines. He found that enslaved Black women were the mechanisms for maintaining West African family structures when everything else was being stripped away. He studied our ancestral mothers. And then he joined or was recruited to the institution that is effectively dismantling every legal and policy structure that our ancestors fought for. This is his published academic record, his current job title, and the effects of the work he is doing. And I'm telling you this because it confirms something you need to hear clearly before we talk about these three women. They have always known Black women are the key. They know who we are. They have always known who we are. They have studied us. On the night of August 14, 1791, in the forest of Bos Cayman, in what was then the French colony of Saint Domingue, a group of enslaved Africans gathered in secret. They came together to commit to each other in body and spirit to end their bondage, to end their enslavement. A Vodou mambo named Cécile Fatiman led the ceremony alongside the Vodou priest Duddy Bookman. The ceremony called upon African spiritual forces and sealed a pact among those that were gathered and sent those people back into the night ready to do what had never been done before in recorded history. Within days, the plantations, plural, of northern Saint Domingue were burning. That ceremony is widely understood and recognized as a spiritual catalyst for the Haitian Revolution, the only successful slave revolution in the history of the modern world, producing the first free Black republic in the Western Hemisphere, Haiti, 1804, and they have been globally punished for it ever since. Cecile Fatiman went on to live to approximately 112 years old. She saw and enjoyed the freedom for her people. She knew her assignment. I have a full video on Cecile Fatiman in my Black Women Are Dope as Fuck series. And I also have another video that talks about the Haitian Revolution along with some other revolts that happened in terms of sacred resistance. I'll link all of that in the description. In 1895, Italy decided they was going to colonize Ethiopia. They had a treaty, the Treaty of Wuchale, and in the Italian version of the treaty, Ethiopia was declared an Italian protectorate, meaning that it would be partially controlled by Italy and no longer sovereign. The Ethiopian language version didn't have that, had no such thing. Empress Taytu Betul, who was the wife of Emperor Menelik II, peeped that. She knew multiple languages, and she was one of the most formidable political and military minds on the African continent. She was the one who identified that the Italian version of the treaty was a deliberate mistranslation, a lie dressed as a document. She was the one who argued in council for war rather than capitulation. It was like they already tried to play us. What we gonna? Ain't nothing else to talk about. It's time for war. Emperor Menelik II prepared for war, and she personally commanded troops at the Battle of Adwa on March 1st, 1896. Ethiopia became the only African nation to decisively defeat a European colonial power on the battlefield and maintained its sovereignty during the entire scramble for Africa. And the memory of Adwa traveled across the entire continent as proof that resistance was possible. Tatu Betul remembered who her people were when the world was ready to rewrite it. She knew her assignment. I have a full video on Tatu Betul and the Black Women Are Dope as Fuck series. That link is in the description. The British had taken the Ashanti king into exile. The Ashanti kingdom is in the region now known as Ghana. They had taken the chiefs, they had taken the men with the most visible power. In 1900, the British governor of the Gold Coast, which is what the British called that region because it was so rich in gold, which is why they came, he arrived in Kumasi and demanded the golden stool, an artifact, a spiritual embodiment of the ancestors and the sovereignty of the Ashanti people. To give it to the British wouldn't just be about losing a symbol, it was losing everything that made the Ashanti who they were. the one thing the Ashanti Empire committed to protect above all else. The male chiefs of the Ashanti gathered to debate what to do. The men, exhausted, defeated, seeing their king get taken away in exile, they were ready to give it. Queen Mother of Ijusu, Yaa Asantewaa, heard enough. She stood up, an elder woman in her 60s. She looked at those men and she said, and this is documented, although the exact words vary across oral traditions and historical accounts. But she said, if you, the men of Ashanti, will not go forward, then we will. I'm going to call upon my fellow women and we will fight the white men and we will fight until the last of us falls. She shamed them into fighting. And then she led the War of the Golden Stool, leading the army that laid siege to the British fort of Kumasi for months. She was eventually captured and exiled, but the British never got the Golden Stool. It was hidden. It survived. The Ashanti soul survived. And I'm getting chills even talking about it. Because a woman remembered what was at stake when the men had forgotten. She knew her assignment. A full video on Yaa Asantewaa is in the Black Women Are Dope as Fuck series. That link is in the description. Three women, 3 centuries, 3 regions: East Africa, West Africa, and the diaspora. 3 different forms of colonial assault. And in each case, the same thing: a Black woman who knew in her bones who her people were and what they were worth. A Black woman who refused to let that knowledge die, who used whatever was available to her: spiritual ceremony, military strategy, sheer moral force to protect and guide her people. That's a pattern. Heritage Foundation Kevin Roberts studied that pattern, while our educational system buries it. These ancestral mothers show us the path to liberatory independence, aka liberty, and that it begins with remembering. You can't fight something that you've been convinced doesn't exist. You can't protect something that you've forgotten you carry. The first act of liberation before the revolution, before the battle, before any speech is the refusal to forget. Cécile Fatiman remembered the spiritual technology. Taytu Betul remembered who Ethiopia was before the treaty tried to rewrite it. Yaa Asantewaa remembered what the Golden Stool actually was. And they each acted from that remembering in a way that changed history. Take a deep breath. And let me ask you something. What do you remember? What do you carry in your body, in your cooking, in the way you do your hair, in the way you move through a room, in the stories you tell, in the rage that comes up when somebody tries to play in your face or hurt your kids? What memory is there that is older than your existence? Because that thing, whatever it is, that's the inheritance these women were protecting and is still under threat. So we can't pretend that July 4th, 2026, that everything is all good. Every day there are numerous incidents of a Karen being a Karen wherever there is black joy popping off at parks. And we got video proof of it. Or the white man in Georgia who came back in body armor with an assault rifle to a black family reunion and opened fire. Luckily, somebody in that family knew their assignment and they were strapped, so they returned fire. But it's not just individual players. We're watching that same pattern play out systemically as policy, cultural memory, Black history, Black studies, the honest telling of this country's story being removed from classrooms and curricula. What is being targeted is exactly what Yaa Asantewaa protected. What is being disrupted is exactly what Taytu Betul refused to surrender. What is being erased is exactly what Cécile Fatiman preserved: the memory, the identity, the cultural and spiritual continuity of a people. And the question this July 4th is the same question that it's always been for us: are we going to remember? I know what I'm choosing. But here's what I want you to understand about the work that I do and about the work you're doing just by being here and watching this. The 7 portals in my activity book: nurture yourself, embody your sensuality, transform your life, be devoted to your growth, embrace your shadow, activate your womb wisdom, and seek balance and healing with nature. That's not a wellness curriculum. That's a remembering practice. Each portal is a doorway back to something that was always yours and has been systemically disrupted. When you embody your sensuality, when you come back into your body as a place of knowing rather than a site of shame or extraction, you are doing what Cécile Fatiman did, reconnecting to the spiritual technology that lives within you. When you transform your life, when you name what needs to die and let it compost into something new, you are doing what Taytu Betul did, refusing to accept the rewritten version of who you are. When you are devoted to your growth, when you build the daily practice of returning to yourself, of knowing who you are so clearly that no one can rewrite it, you are doing what Yaa Asantewaa did. She could not have held the line for the golden stool without a prior and personal devotion to knowing exactly what was worth protecting. The broader devotion was only possible because the inner one already existed. If you're willing, let me know in the comments if you recognize something about yourself in these women, because that's the actual structure of liberation. The internalized anti Blackness video that I made, the links in the description, is about this. The Angry Black Woman video I made, links in the description, is about this. That Embody and Reclaim Your Sensuality as a Birthright video that I made, link in the description, is about this. The Father's Day video, the Mother's Day video, all of it, links in the description, are about this. It's all about the same thing. Black women remembering and healing as a revolutionary act, as our path to independence, as a path to our liberation. And because every time we forget, every time we accept the diminished version, the colonized version, the version that says that we are not enough or that our culture is not worth preserving, we lose a little bit more of what Mama Cecile and Mama Tatu and Nana Ya fought to protect. The remembering is the beginning of the revolution. So here's what your medicine is for this 4th of July weekend and beyond, really. It's not a protest or a performance, it's just a short practice. If you can find a moment before the cookout or after the fireworks, whenever you can. And as always, you know, I always start with putting your feet flat on the ground or the floor if you at home. Having a journal nearby might be good so you can capture what comes up. And we always start with breathing. Just take some deep breaths at your own pace. And you're going to ask yourself 3 questions. Don't rush them, just let them land, let them marinate, let them percolate. I'm from Chicago, so you know I'm a percolate. Now, the first question is, what do I know about who I am that the world keeps trying to make me forget? What do I know about who I am that the world keeps trying to make me forget? Second question, what did the women before me carry so that I could exist? What did the women before me carry so that I could exist? And your last question, what am I carrying right now, knowingly or not, that's meant to survive beyond me? What am I carrying right now, knowingly or not, that is meant to survive beyond me? Continue to breathe deeply, slowly, with intention. And as I said, if you have your journal nearby, which with each of those questions, just jot down what comes up and stay with whatever surfaces. Don't try to edit it. Don't try to make it smaller. That thing, whatever came up, even if it's multiple things, that thing is worth protecting this 4th of July and all the 4th of Julys that are ahead of us because your ancestors gave it to you. They fought with ceremony, with strategy, with courage, with memory to make sure it survived. And it did. It's in you right now. That is independence. That is liberation. That is freedom defined on your own terms, or at least the beginning of it. Ain't got nothing to do with a sparkler emoji. So if this did a thing for you, this is how we can go deeper. Those 3 warrior women, those ancestral mothers that I talked about, They each have their own full video in the Black Women Are Dope as Fuck series. The links are in the description. You can go and just binge watch those and continue to absorb the wisdom and the medicine that they left for us. If you want to work with the seven portals that I talked about, those remembering practices that are the modern expression of what these women carried, you can do, first of all, free love letters from the ancestral mothers. You can sign up for that. It's 7 emails, one for each portal that you receive over the course of 2 weeks so that you have time to work with them. And each one includes audio, each one includes some work that you can do, some medicine that you can apply. And I respond to replies on those emails because I want you to actually get it. I want it to be useful for you. Or you can get the Remember Who the Fuck You Are activity book, which is the full remembering practice where we go deeper on all 7 portals. And it's not a download, it's a physical book that you can buy either on my website. The link is in the description, or you can get it on Amazon as well. You know, we're trying to move away from Amazon. So I prefer for you to get it on my website, but Amazon is fine too if you got some gift cards you need to use. Or you can go deeper in a one on one Remember Who You Are session with you, me, and the specific portal you want to work with. So those are the 3 doors. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for riding with me. I went down several rabbit holes with this one, and I'm so grateful that you gave me the opportunity to share it with you. In the next video, we're talking about depression in the Black community. I have struggled with depression my whole life. I wrote about it in my memoir, From Fat, Black, and Unlovable to Beautiful, Powerful Love. And you can get that on my website or on Amazon as well. And I will say if anybody is struggling with depression and you need assistance, 988 is something that you can chat. You can call it. You can go to the website and chat through their website. But know that you are not alone and reach out and get some support to hold you. And I just have to say, I love my life. Even though I've struggled with depression my whole life, I love my life and I would never take my own life, for the record. Now, subscribe if you haven't. Like and share this video with someone who needs it, who needs to understand and have a different lens for what 4th of July has been for our people and what it can mean for us going forward, and what liberation and liberty has meant for our people. And as always, y'all all know, until the next video, take good care of you. I'll see you next time.